Welcome back to How To. Today, Chasca. Chasca is Genshin Impacts' newest 5-star Anemo bow user. She rides around in a freaking gun, patrolling the skies, making sure no enemies are causing trouble. And she rides a freaking gun. What more is there to say? Let's just get right into it. So Chasca is the newest 5-star addition to Genshin Impact. She's an Anemo bow user that will serve as your main DPS, and she brings a similar playstyle to Wanderer. They both use their teammates' elements a lot to output more damage, except Chasca does it in a slightly different way. So if you're familiar with Wanderer, you'll be a little familiar with her. And in this guide, I'll show you obviously how to build her and how do you enjoy her gun riding capabilities to the fullest. So the first thing I'll go over is the more complicated part of her kit, and it's her playstyle. So Chasca's normal attacks do a string of 4, dealing no elemental damage, and her charge attacks simply charge up her bow and she fires off Anemo. Nothing special really. I wouldn't prioritize this as one of your talents to level up, so don't even worry about a normal attack. Just forget about it. So her skill is where things get a lot more complicated, so make sure to pay extra close attention to this part. So when Chasca uses her skill, she enters the Night Soul Blessing state, which is her riding her gun. She gains 80 Night Soul points, and when she's in this state, she has an increased movement speed. She can change her direction up or down, she can fly up or down. And she has interruption resistance improvement, so that means it'll be harder for her to get knocked back and take that stagger damage. Keep in mind though, when she does any of these actions like moving around, changing directions, she will consume Night Soul points. And remember, if you're Natland and you don't have any Night Soul points, you'll start draining the other points instead. So for the damage part of her skill, there's 2 modes that she uses. Her tap fire and her hold fire, right? So when you tap fire, she just fires animal damage bullets, and this is considered normal attack damage. This mode isn't very good since she only fires off Anemo damage, and you're missing out essentially on her entire kit. So never just fire when she's on her skill. You will miss out on a lot of damage. For her hold mode, you want to use the fire button, in which 6 shells are loaded into her revolver, and then these shells will be indicated by icons on like the top right of a revolver looking thing. These shells are called Shadow Hunt shells, and the 4th, 5th, and 6th shells will change elements depending on the characters in your party. Keep in mind that only Pyro, Hydro, Cryo, and Electro can change these bullets, so Anemo, Geo, and Dendro characters won't affect any of her bullets, so avoid using those characters if you can. And the bullets will fire last loaded first shot, so that means that if your 6th bullet is, for example, Pyro, that's going to be the first bullet to come out, and the first bullet, which is always going to be Animal, is going to be the last bullet that's always going to come out. So keep in mind, last loaded first shot, keep in mind. So now this leads us to her first passive talent, Bullet Trick. For each party member, there is a 33% chance, 67% chance, and 100% chance to convert the 3rd Shadow Hunt shell to a random element from one of your party members. So what this means is that if you have one party member, there's a 33% chance to convert that 3rd bullet. If there's 2 members, it's 67% chance to convert that 3rd bullet. And if you have 3 different party members, all with different elements, 100% chance to convert that 3rd Shadow Hunt shell to a random element from your party. Keep in mind though that just because you have 100% chance to change it doesn't mean that we know what it's going to change it into. And this is pretty much the case with the other shells. The elements are just essentially random. You could essentially get like 3 cryo ones or 3 pyro and just miss out on reactions. That's kind of the gamble you're taking here with her, is that you really don't know or get any consistency on what these shells are going to be, but keep that in mind. You will also gain a stack of Spirit of the Radiant Shadow, which will grant you a 15%, 35%, or 65% damage increase on her Shadow Hunt shells for the teammates, right? So 1 teammate is 15%, 2 teammates is 35, and 3 teammates is 65. So that ideally you want to run Chasca with 3 different elemental party members. This basically ensures a lot more damage, and it ensures that you have a higher percent to change that 3rd bullet to an element and not just have it stuck on Anemo. So the TLDR of her skill: you want to fly up, pop her skill, and then you want to hold her skill. This will then load 6 bullets, the first 2 always being Anemo, no matter what. The third one, if you have 1, 2, or 3 teammates of different elements, will have a different percentage to convert to an element from your party members. If you have 1, 2, or 3, you have a higher damage increase. Her ultimate, Soul Reaper's Fatal Wounds, fires off 6 AoE animal damage shells named Yell Splitting Soul Seeker shells, which attack nearby opponents. And for each Pyro, Hydro, Cryo, or Electro character, 2 shells will change to a corresponding element and deal damage to the opponents. Right, so of those 6, if you have 3 different party members that have different elements, all 6 will be converted to a different element. So again, they're really emphasizing running Chasca with many different teammates of different elements. And I'll get more into this in the party section because she has a lot of options to run here, so don't worry about that too much for now. Her second talent, Intent to Cover, fires a burning Shadow Hunt shot when a nearby party member triggers a Night Soul Burst. This deals animal damage equal to 150% of the Shadow Hunt shell damage, and if the party member has Pyro, Hydro, Cryo, or Electro, the Shadow Hunt shell will be converted to one of those corresponding elements and deal damage equal to 150% of the hold fire. So again, you really want to run her with different elemental teammates. Her third passive, Night Realm's Gift, Ever Burning Heart. Basically that means that after using up all your Night Soul points, Chasca will instead consume Phlogiston to keep her Night Soul state going. And it's basically the Natlin effect, right? You fly around and stuff and you run out of Night Soul points. You just use up the bar on top of your health, right? And just like every other Natlin character, if you jump with a different character into Chasca, she's gonna spawn in with her gun. You know, it looks pretty cool. And finally, her fourth talent, Meditation's True Meaning. It grants her 25 Phlogiston when you defeat any opponent, and this can be triggered once every 12 seconds. For relics, it's pretty straightforward. You want to run the 4-piece Obsidian Codex. This increases the damage of Night Soul Blessings characters by 15%, and with the 4-piece, you get a 40% crit rate for 60 seconds. Just super busted and best in slot for Chasca, easily. A difference that you can run, maybe you're not in Natlin yet, you can run the 4-piece Shimenawas. The 2-piece gives Chasca an 18% attack buff, which is really solid, and the 4-piece increases her normal, charged, and plunging damage by 50% for 10 seconds when the character has 15 or more energy when casting her skill. Since her skill damage scales off charged attack damage, this is going to be a massive buff. This is going to be her second best in slot, especially if you don't have Obsidian Codex like I previously mentioned. However, a 4-piece Viridescent Venerer would not be a bad choice, since it would be unoptimal to run a second animal character with Chasca. You really don't have anyone to hold the VV set, but when you equip the 4-piece, this increases swirl damage by 60%, and it decreases elemental res for the element infused by swirl by 40% for 10 seconds. It would be ideal for Chasca to run it since she can get the most value out of it, especially if you're running her with a lot of elemental teammates, right? Xiangling, Farina, all these characters that do good amounts of damage will only benefit more from this. And since Chasca is also using these elements when she's attacking, she also gains a lot of damage from this. For main stats, you want to run Attack Sands, and if you don't have an Attack Sands, animal damage is good. However, since she doesn't really do too much animal damage, if you're running her with an optimal team, I would suggest Attack Sands, Attack Goblet, and then crit rate or crit damage circlet, depending on what you need. For your substats, crit damage, crit rate, whatever you need, attack percent, and then EM last. For her weapons, her signature weapon, Astral Vulture's Crimson Plumage, is going to be her best in slot. For 12 seconds after triggering a swirl, attack is increased by 24%, and when there are 1 or 2 party members with different elements in the party, it increases their charge attack damage by 20/48% for, again, 1 or 2 teammates, and elemental burst damage by 10/24%, right? So even her weapon here is pushing for at least 2 different party members of different elements, but this again will be her best in slot. For a second option for 5 stars, you can do the big stat stick Aqua Simulacra. 88.2 crit damage and 20% damage increase, just for free. Very good weapon, you know, very good on a lot of people. It will be her best second option. For free to play, I would recommend Chainbreaker. It has 27.6 attack when maxed, and for each Natlan character or different elemental type character in your party, increase attack by 4.8%, and when there are no less than 3 of these characters, increase EM by 24. So whether you're running 3 different characters of different elements or from Natland, you're going to get an attack buff, and if not, you're going to get an EM buff, which again, both work on Chasca. So a very good weapon and craftable. And for free to play, but not craftable, you know, 4-star, Stringless, 165 VM, and increases skill and burst damage. Nothing much more needs to be said about this weapon. Pretty strong. Now for my big spenders out there that love going for cons, I'll go through our cons real quick. I'll tell you when's a good stopping point, so don't worry too much about it. Her C1, when triggering bullet trick, the second bullet can also be converted to a different element corresponding to your party's elements, and the percentage chance of these to convert also goes up by 33%, making the floor of converting 66.6%, 99.9%, and 100%. Right. So this means that you can run one less elemental character, but keep in mind that this does not stack to the damage increase of 15, 35, and 65%. So you will miss out on around 30% damage for not having a third different elemental character, but you can still get the Shadow Hunt shells without the third character. C2, I think this is a really good stopping point. This is, I believe, her strongest constellation, aside from C6, of course. So when Chasca goes on field, she gains 1 stack of Spirit of Radiant Shadow, which is the 15% damage buff that I mentioned earlier, right? So now instead of having to run 3 different elemental characters, now you need to run 2, since she immediately starts with 1 stack. So this means she instantly has 15% damage buff. On top of giving you that 15% damage buff, when Chasca's skill hits an opponent, it will deal AoE damage of the corresponding element equal to 400% of Chasca's attack. C3 increases the level of her skill plus 3. C4, when Soul Reaper Fatal Round hits, they will restore 1.5 energy to Chasca and deal AoE elemental damage of the corresponding type equal to 400% of Chasca's attack. Her C5 increases her ultimate level by plus 3. And finally, her C6, which is very strong. I've seen a lot of gameplay of it, and it seems pretty strong. So her C6 is pretty strong. Chasca's hold time for her skill is reduced, and after her passive, bullet tricks and spirit bonding conversion are triggered, Chasca will enter the final round state. So what this means is that for the next 3 seconds, when Chasca does her hold skill, the shots will load instantly and crit damage is increased by 120%. And fatal rounds can only be triggered once every 3 seconds. Essentially, what this means is you load up your 6 shells, you fire them, and the next time you have to load up your shells, they're there instantly. Essentially saving you so much time and outputting so much damage. This is definitely a really strong con. Again, like I said, I saw gameplay of it, and it looked insane. I will not lie, it looks super cool. But again, those are for the big spenders out there, so don't be pressured to spend money on this character. For the team section, I'll go over a couple supports that I think are going to be really strong with Chasca, and some of these are just have always dominated, you know, so don't be too surprised on some of these. So characters like Farina are going to be really strong with her. Not only will she buff her damage, but her summons do a lot of damage and apply a lot of Hydro. Yaimiko, very low uptime on Yaimiko. You set her turns down and they get to work, right? And this basically means you're going to have a lot more uptime on Chasca, and when you swap to Yaimiko, you just want to set her turns down and not worry about anything else. Shenhe, surprisingly here, I know a lot of you may be like, who is this character? I don't know who Shenhe is. That must be a new cryo. Shenhe's real. Yeah, she's very real. She's had 2 banners, you know, not a lot. But again, very solid. She's going to boost the damage of Chasca's cryo bullets, and she's going to provide buffs for the team. Fischl, again, very strong Electro unit. Zhangling, very strong Pyro unit. Bennett, attack buff, heal, Pyro, what more can you ask? The new character, Auroron, which I will also do a guide for. And Kokomi. And you know, I don't like Kokomi, but Kokomi is really good for this team. The first team I can think of off the top of my head is Chasca, Farina, Shenhe, Bennett. Bennett can provide fanfare stacks for Farina. Shenhe can buff the cryo bullets for Chasca. Very solid premium team. You can also run Chasca, Yaimiko, Zhangling, Kokomi. All very good synergy. You're going to be proccing a lot of reactions. And a more free-to-play friendly team, Chasca, Fischl, Zhangling, and my personal favorite, Layla. She's a good support, and she's going to provide a good shield for everyone. But yeah, that's essentially my how-to Chasca guide. If I had to give her a rating of 1 through 5 Ho-Hos, I would give her 4 Ho-Hos. I think she's solid. She's definitely going to push Wander more down the pit than he already is. The only downside that I can really see to Chasca is the randomness of the reactions. You kind of can't decide, like, I want to hit them with this or I want to hit them with that. And the bullets are just loaded in randomly, so it's kind of like a toss-up in the air of what you get. But other than that, she does a lot of damage. The exploration is super fun and easy. But yeah, Chasca's a very solid DPS. I don't think you can go wrong with her. Me personally, I don't think I'm going to pull. I think I'm going to save my summons for maybe someone else. And again, if you're going for a con, C2 is best. If you're deciding C2 or weapon, I would do weapon. I think a weapon is a lot better. Again, thanks everyone for watching my quick how-to Chasca. Catch you all on the Auroron how-to guide. Coming soon.